Hello there everyone. Today I want to show you how to make this wire Kumihimo bracelet with beads running along the inside of the braid, and it looks like this. So this is the effect that you get. You have your Kumihimo braid on the outside but with wire, and then your beads running on the inside of the bracelet, and then finished off nicely at the end there. So this is actually using a Kumihimo technique. It's called the hollow braid. So if you want to learn how to make this, then keep watching. So the things we're going to need are these, and the first thing I have here is my Kumihimo disc, and this is the round one because we're going to be making a round braid. And then the wire that I have here is a 0.8mm in thickness, and this is just regular round wire, and I'm just working with a silver colored wire. And I do recommend when you do wire Kumihimo that you're using a softer wire rather than a harder one. It's going to be easier to work with. And then what I have here are my beads, and these are 6mm rounds, and they're faceted agate that have been coated with a copper coating. And you can obviously use whatever you want to use, but these are just what I'm using. I have my end bead caps here, and these are basically like Kumihimo ends. The only difference is a Kumihimo end normally has a loop here at the top that you then attach your findings to. These actually just have a hole through there instead. So we're going to be using that to put a wire through. So we need two of them, one for each end, and then your findings here as well. And then the final thing that we're going to need is this, and it's a bit of a homemade tool we're going to need to help create the braid to get it nice and even, and it's just a wooden dowel here. Now this particular one is about 6mm in diameter when you look from the ends, so they're actually, it's the same size as my beads because they're going to run along the inside, and this is going to be the space on the inside of the braid. So you can also make this in other sizes, but these are just the ones that I'm going to be using. So you obviously, if you change the size of your dowel, you might want to change the size of your beads as well. But then we're going to need this, and then at the end I've put in a hook here because we're going to need this to first of all attach our wires, but also to add a bit of a weight. And all you do, it's nice and simple, you get these dowels, you can just literally use your hand to kind of screw it in there right at the end, and it's going to be nice and secure enough to use, and then you'll be able to screw it back out as well, because we need to do that when we take a braid off of this. So this is a bit of a homemade tool that we're going to need. So let's get all the materials together and then let's get started. So what we need to do first is cut a wire, and that's what I have here. And what we'll need is 4 lengths of about 80cm each, because what we're going to be doing is doubling them over to then give us the 8 working lengths of wire that we'll need to create the braid. And then what I'm going to do is get my tool out here, because we need to kind of just secure the wires in place before we can attach them to the Kumihimo disc. So we're going to use this to run through the bracelet. And then what I'm going to do is take 1 length of wire at a time here. I'm going to put the ends together, because we need to find roughly the middle, because what we're going to do is bend over all the wires, so each length is going to become 2 working cords for the Kumihimo. So the middle is roughly there. So all I'm going to do is just start attaching these wires just right down here by the hook. So just do this quite easily, it doesn't have to be too neat, but it's just so they kind of stay in place. And obviously it's going to be a little bit loose still, but just kind of try and hold them on there. So that's your first one. Take your next one, do the same thing, bend it in half to find roughly the middle, and then we just need to attach that in the same way. So just do this with all your lengths of wire, just so they kind of attach down here, so they stay in place right at the beginning when we're working to make the Kumihimo. So it's nice and secure to work with to begin with, but also try not to bulk it up too much, just kind of wrap them around, just once is enough, because we don't want to bulk it up too much, so it's going to take up too much space. But just do it gently like this and attach all your wires. So I've now attached all the wires in the same way, and then you'll probably find that you have wires kind of going all over the place. Just be a bit patient, make sure you don't poke yourself in the eye, and then what we need to do now is transfer this and put it onto the Kumihimo disc. So to do that, I'm just going to get it out, and then we need to kind of put the hook on this dowel that we have down through the center, and you can always kind of grab it from the back with your fingers just to kind of help hold on to it. Stay there in the middle until we placed all the wires. So again, we have a bit of a wire mess. So what we need to do now is distribute the wires, and I'm just going to use the dots to to place them on each side of the dot here, all the way around. So the top one, the side ones. And don't worry too much about your wires bending a little bit, because they will naturally as you go. But we're going to smooth it out as we go, and make sure you don't get kinks in them though. So as long as it's gentle curves, then that's fine. And then it's going to sit like this, and this is now going to kind of stay nice and secure because we have all the wires wrapped around the hook down there. And then that's going to be the dowel that's going to kind of be the core of the whole Kumihimo braid. Now what I also would just suggest is that you get some sort of weight to just add to the back of your braid here. Now it's perfect in the sense you already have the hook on that tool that we made. And then just attach your weight. If you don't have a Kumihimo weight like this, just use something else, like a little bag of something, some coins, and just attach it like that, because that's going to help just kind of pull your braid down and also get a bit more of an even braid as well. So then to start making the braid, now this is not going to be a regular Kumihimo braid where you go across the middle with your pairs. This is going to be what's known as a hollow braid, and I've already done one of these with cord, a tutorial on that, so if you want to have a look at that, maybe just to understand the technique a bit if you don't know it already, then I'm going to put a link to that in the description box. Otherwise I'm also just going to show you here, but just be aware that obviously we're working with wire, so it's going to be a bit different than working with cord. Cord is a lot easier because you don't have these long kind of stiff lengths that you might poke yourself in the eye with. So just take your time, make sure you kind of have space around you to do this with wire. But then what we do is I'm going to start with my top dot there. It's just for reference, like I said, the dots, because the difference with this braid, we're not going to be the cords aren't going to move around the disc like they would do on a normal braid. We're kind of going to stay around the dots. So what I'm going to do is take my top left one, and just also what I like to do as I'm working with it, because it's wire, every time I grab a length of wire to then bring across to somewhere else, I always just kind of straighten it out with my fingers, not so it becomes straight, but just so you get any kind of obvious curve or bend out of it. And bring it across, we jump over the one to the right, and then put it in the slot just before the next pair. Take the very next one, so the top one from that side pair around the dot, just smooth it out, jump over one, and place it before the bottom pair. Take the next one, jump over one, and place it in, and the very next one, jump over one again, and then place it back at the original slot at the top there. So that's the first go around the disc. And now we need to come back the other way, so we do the same thing, except we take the top right one and then go the opposite direction. So top right, jump over one, towards the left, place it before any of the others, take the very next one, smooth it out, jump over one, place it before the next one, and the very next one, jump over one, place it before the next one, and then the very next one, jump over one, and place it before the next one. And that is basically one whole go around on the disc. So the only difference is the top pair here is back in its place, but the only difference is the rest, they have a bit of space in between them. So all we need to do is reposition them. So bring the ones from those pairs towards the middle again, so they just come right next to the dot all the way around. And that's what we're going to be doing every time. So there's just a bit of repositioning here. And that is your one final full go around on the disc. So this was just a first go around, so you won't really be able to see much yet, but as it's building, you'll be able to see it building up on the sides here, obviously coming out on the back. But you just want to basically keep doing this now. Repeat the step that I just showed you. So your top left one jumps over one and goes in before the next one. The very next one jumps over one, goes in before the next one. And just keep doing that. Remember to smooth out your wires, because eventually obviously that piece up here that might be a bit bent, it's going to work its way towards the middle, and that's the kind of the place where you want your wire to be nice and straightened out and not have any obvious kinks in it. That's why you want to try and avoid that. And then go the other way again, jump over one and place it in, jump over one and place it in, and all the way around again. Same principle, same technique. and then that weight underneath there is going to really help pull it down. And also you can always use your fingers as well to make sure it kind of gets pulled down as well. Repositioning all the wires here. Get back to the original starting position so we can go around again, and then that's your second go around, and then that's basically all there is to it. You'll then slowly at some point soon start to see it building up here, and you should get a somewhat even pattern there in the middle. So you just want to keep doing this until you build about the length that you need for your bracelet, and then I'll show you what we do next. So I've now kept braiding for a bit, and my braid is coming out of the back here. And then what I just want to mention is, because it's wire we're working with, which is obviously quite a bit different than cord, we just need to be aware that we need to try and keep an even tension throughout the whole thing. So when I move my wire here, if I was going to do another round, I bring it over and I want to put a little bit more force into it. Not necessarily pull really hard, but just to make sure that your wire around here is going to lie flat against your mandrel in the middle. So it's going to be the size of the space inside is going to actually be the size of your mandrel there. So pull it over quite tight and then bring it in and try and keep the same tension throughout the whole piece. And also what I like to do on the back here as I go, I kind of then grab the mandrel as well with my hand and help squeeze it in, especially right up here, to again form it around that mandrel so it's going to get the even and consistent shape throughout the whole piece. So this is how we're then creating the braid, and it's going to come out looking a bit like this on the back. And then what we want to do, because we obviously want to make sure we get it the right size, so we kind of need to measure it as we go. So when you reach a point where you think it's going to be about the right length that you need, I'm going to get out my measuring tape. So I'm just going to use that here, and then just decide how long you want it. So mine, I want to end up with being about 7.5 inches in total, including the clasp as well. So what I'm going to do is kind of measure it, get it in there from right at the top where your braid starts and down here. So mine ends just a bit before the 7 inches, because we need to remember we need to account for the clasp, so it's going to add a little bit extra length. Depending on what clasp you use, maybe about 1/2 inch to 1 inch. So that's obviously depending on what materials that you're using. And also what we've got to keep in mind is, because this is like a cylinder and it's got a bit of space to it, when we shape it around as a bracelet, that's going to take up a bit more of the length as well, because it's not a flat piece that we're just shaping into a bracelet. So we just need to add an extra centimetre or two as well to the length, just so when we shape it, it's going to end up the right size that we want the bracelet to be. So once you reached the length that you want, then I'm going to take it off my board here, because I'm finished with creating the braid. And obviously, because this is wire, you just take it off, you don't have to worry about it unraveling. So like this. And then we have an open end here still, but then this is basically a finished braid. And you get this nice even look to it, and really nice effect with your even spacings there. So what we need to do now is basically take off the braid from the actual mandrel that we've been using. But obviously this is going to be a little bit difficult because we attach the wires down here and it's a hook here. So what I'm going to have to do is undo the actual hook from this. It's quite simple, you just screw it out, because it is just a thin piece of wood here. So just screw it out and it's going to come out through the loops you kind of made there to attach the wires in the first place. And we're going to use them as well to finish off the bracelet, so we don't want to get rid of them. So just do it gently so you're not disturbing any of the wires down here. And then we can take the mandrel out of the braid up here. Take it out gently. Obviously be careful you don't squeeze anything down. Like this. And then here we have an open wire Kumihimo braid. And we still have the opening up here. So now what we need to do is start making the core. So to do that, we're just going to put this to the side, because we kind of need to get the core ready first. And then what I've done is I've cut another length here of my 0.8mm wire. You could also use a different gauge for this. I'm just going to use the same gauge that I made the actual braid with. I've got that handy. But you could quite easily use a thicker gauge as well if you need to. All you need to make sure of is the wire that you're using will go through the end of your braid. So the little hole that we have down there from the beginning, it'll go through your end caps that you're using, so that little hole in there, and then also through your beads. So that's all we got to make sure of, but then otherwise you can use whatever wire you want to use for this. And then what I'm going to do is just get this ready first before we start adding it through the core. So I'm going to get out my bail making pliers, my 6-step bail making pliers. You can also use round nose pliers for this because we need to make a loop first. I just like using these because you can guarantee you get the right size, the same size loop whenever you're making a loop. And if you don't have these and you would like them, I'm going to put a link in the description box to them so you can have a look there. But then also I'm going to use my chain nose pliers. You can use flat nose pliers. And what we're going to do is I'm going to do a wrapped loop down here. So that's what we're going to use at the end as well to just finish off the bracelet, add whatever clasp we're using. So bend your wire back like this so you get an angle. This is just a regular round loop, and then decide what size you want to use, or if you're using your round nose pliers, just use them wherever you want that size to be, and then place them on that bend and that angle, and then bend the end here back to the front. So you basically get a circle like this, and then I go back to my chain nose pliers and place them on that loop nice and firmly so it doesn't get distorted now, because what we're going to do is wrap the end here around the center wire just a few times. I like to do it about 3 times, so something like this, and make sure your wraps are kind of nice and tight as it can be. And then we need to get our cutters. I'm using my flush cutters. Cut that down, and then just always make sure that you press in your end when you've done a wrap loop here, because you'll feel, if you go over it, you'll feel you have a little bit sticking out, and you obviously don't want that to catch on anything or be able to actually feel it scratch. So just press it in so you can't feel it anymore. So that loop is now ready. So to then put it all together, what we need to get out is we need to get our beads ready here, because we're going to start adding them into it, and also we just need one of our end caps as well. So what I'm going to do is take my piece of wire here with my loop on, and then at the other end it's still open, and I'm going to take my end cap and then put it on so the outside of it goes down towards the original loop that we made, so it sits like that, and then you got the space inside there. And then go back to the end again, and we need to get our braid out, so the Kumihimo wire braid that we made. And then down at the end here, that's where we attached all the wires. You have that little hole for your wire to go through just perfectly like this. It's going to sit nice and securely, because that's where we attached it to the hook originally. And then feed it all the way down, and then the end of your braid here is going to go inside that end cap and sit just nicely like this. And you can just squeeze it up so your braid goes as far in as possible, so just like this. So that end is going to be nice and neat now, and we still have this end that's open. So what we need to do now is feed all our beads onto it so they're going to sit inside the braid. And we simply just do that by making sure it's kind of pulled out, and then the end of your 0.8 mil that you put through your braid, so not the open ends of your actual braid but the longer one here, we're just going to start adding the beads onto that and just let them drop down. Now what I would say, don't worry about kind of letting them drop down. They might drop down all the way by themselves, but if they don't, if they kind of almost get trapped a little bit like that, don't worry about putting something in there to get them down now. Just leave them as they are and then keep feeding the beads on, because then automatically as you then push them down and they're building up, they're going to push the other ones further and further down until you fill up the whole thing. So just keep doing this until you filled it up with beads, and your beads end up around here where your actual braid ends as well. So I've now filled in all my beads here until the very end, and then what that's left to do really is finish off that end. But before we do that, I would just recommend that we bend this first into the bracelet shape, because as we're doing that it might just alter it a little bit and just kind of push maybe the beads or the wire or something a little bit further apart. so you don't want to close this end off and then shape it and it kind of goes out of proportion a little bit, so rather bend it now. So you just keep hold of this up here where your beads are and then gently start bending it into your bracelet shape. And just give the beads a bit of space. That's why if you're holding it, you can just kind of gently let go and see if they need a bit more space as you're bending it. But just gradually give it a curve all the way around. And make sure obviously your wire is pulled all the way up so that loop is sitting nice and tight to the end cap. But then just keep going like this, back and forth, to get a gentle, nice curve in there till you end up with your bracelet shape. So now we've got a nice shape here, so it's almost a bracelet shape. You don't have to worry about getting it exactly how it's going to be, just so you get that kind of most of the curve in there, because we just need to have a bit of space to finish off the ends as well. So how we're going to finish off this end is we need to do all the individual wires here that form the Kumihimo braid. So we need to start with them and cut them down. So just open them out a little bit, just to get a bit of space to work with. And then just make sure that your beads are pushed all the way down there so there's not space in between. And then what we're going to do is take one wire at a time and start finishing them off. Now I start with the ones that are kind of coming towards in the middle of the braid here first. And then I'm just going to start with one of them, bring it towards the middle, so kind of continue the go around, but just bring it into the middle. So we're going to use this center wire that's running through the whole bracelet carrying the beads to wrap all these around. And we just want to gently get it going here with the first one. Just wrap it around that center one, pushing it tight down to the beads, so you make sure there is no gap there in the beads, and so it sits nice and securely there. So just like this, and then we can just go in and cut it off, because we just need to wrap it around just once like this gently, because there's so many wires we need to finish. There's going to be plenty there to kind of hold it securely, but also we don't want to do too many wraps because it's going to bulk up the end and it might not then be able to actually fit inside there. So we want to make sure they can fit inside. So pick your next wire, whatever's coming towards the middle. I'm going to go to this other side here, do the same thing. You can open the other ones out a little bit more and then bring that in and around that center wire, still making sure the beads are sitting correctly. And then just wrap it around the ones. And again, go in and cut it off. And you just want to keep doing this. You can also use some chain nose pliers to help you just close the wires in a bit more. And then you want to keep doing this, finishing off one wire at a time. It's going to finish off the end nice and neatly. And then sometimes as well, you don't necessarily want to build up all the loops here, the ends of your wires, on top of each other so it builds that way. You do a few like that and then you can build kind of on the outside of them again, just so you get more, fill the width as well as up the wire. So finish off the next one, and then you might want to start building on top of them now, because obviously we're going to have space inside that end for the outside here as well, because you don't want it to be too long here, because then the end might be sticking out of that end cap. So just keep doing this with all your wires. So now I've finished off all those ends of wire, and then it doesn't really matter how neatly you've done it, as long as you make sure to not make it too bulky, because this end is going to be inside that end cap anyway. So that's what we're going to use now. We're going to use the other end cap, and then with the wire we have left that's running through the whole bracelet with the beads on, we're going to put this on, but then put it on the other way around, feed it all the way down like that, and then it's going to sit right at the end of your braid. Hide all those ends as well. So first of all, you can't see them, but also you can't feel them either, so they're not going to catch or scratch on anything. It's going to be finished off nice and neatly and securely. And then basically what we want to do is finish off this wire by doing another wrap loop exactly like that. So just do a wrap loop here. So I've then made my wrap loop on that end as well, and then we basically have both ends finished off nice and neatly like that, and securely as well. And then if you have any last adjustments to do, you want to do that now. So just finish shaping your bracelet. Just any little adjustments until it gets to the final bracelet shape and size that you need it to be. And then all that's left to do is attach whatever findings you want to use. So whatever clasp that you choose to put on yours, I'm going to use a lobster claw clasp and extend the chain so it's adjustable. You can gently adjust it depending on who's wearing it, and just using some jump rings to attach to these loops. So that's what you want to do now. Attach whatever clasp that you're using and then your bracelet will be finished. So now I attach my clasp here, and then this is your finished bracelet. So it's now ready to wear. Just use your clasp, close it up, and then it looks like this. So it gives a really nice effect with the beads on the inside there. You can see them through even though you've got the Kumihimo on the outside with your wire. So I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial, and thank you very much for watching.